Hello, my lovelies, babies, lows, lads, dudes, sugars, sugar flowers, mountain moons on the mountain flowers on the moon. Oh my God. How is everybody today? I hope everybody's doing good. I really do. Still sick as a dog here, sick as a dog. Eesh. When is it gonna let up? I don't know. Again, Curse of the Hobbit. Curse of the Hobbit. Man. I think I gotta stop talking about the Hobbit. Jeez. Every time I seem to talk about the Hobbit, man, something happens, right? No. That's called false association. Okay. Yeah. Which we see a lot in this case, by the way. Anyway. I wanted to do, my plan was, right, here's what my plan was going to be. I wanted to start a kind of a chunk of videos here. Maybe, 2 or 3, probably 2, right? Focused solely on Kohlberger. Just focused on Kohlberger. Because, well, he pled guilty, right? So I feel we have to do some focus on him, of course, right? Of course. And I tried to do that in a way before, with things you have to believe in order to convict him. A couple videos way back on that, right? But since that was before he actually pled to the charges. So I feel it's now we need to focus on him for a little bit, right? Of course, because the big question is, why would you do that? If if you didn't do it, why would you do it? Why would you plead? So, great question. That's a great question. And probably the most important one right now, because Thompson Thompson didn't even bother. Thompson didn't even bother to elicit any type of detail as to how he did it, why he did it, and he didn't bother. Right? We saw him say that. He didn't say he didn't bother, but he said nothing coming out of his mouth would have been the truth. So he didn't even bother. He didn't even bother. It's like he didn't want to know, really. That's the impression I got. Like it didn't even matter to him. And really, that's the impression I got. And again, he's not a psychic. So again, we know, how I feel about evil Santa. But so that leaves us in the dark. It leaves us completely in the dark as to, okay, if this is true, we don't know how he did it, right? We don't. But we have to dive into it. We have to. I mean, this is right. He's the person who pled, obviously. So anyway, I was going to do that next. However, before that, I was looking at some videos. I was like, kind of, okay, anything stuff I feel I wanted to look at, and I thought this is kind of in line with the recent, sealing of autopsy photos, things like that. And I want to cover this. This one's short. It's like 10-minute long, this video. And again, what I find interesting about this one coming up, guys, is you can kind of see them questioning things, but they won't allow themselves. Listen, this is interesting. They won't allow themselves to question beyond a certain point. You'll see what I'm talking about, and I'll point it out as it happens. And this is what I'm talking about with denial. Now, I don't mean that people are lying, okay? I don't think they're lying. I just think they, for whatever reason, they cannot allow themselves, or there's a void. You know what I mean? There's a void there that is just a blind spot, if you will, a blind spot. But it's interesting to see it. It's interesting to see it because they almost get there. But then it's kind of like once they get there, they switch right back to what they've been told by the mainstream media, which this is a part of. I consider this a part of it. This is what you're going to see, okay? It's not ABC, it's not NBC, that kind of crap. It's not, Nancy Grace, 48 hours. Not that, but it's close enough. Anyway, and so yeah, you'll see that. They switch. They just jump right back onto the mainstream media narrative, what we've been told by Moscow police and all this, right? They jump right back to the safety zone, okay? Safety zone. So that's interesting to see. Anyway, but it is in line though with the sealing of the autopsy photos. I'm not the not the autopsy. Excuse me, the crime scene photos of the victims. Okay. Now I personally don't need to see how they looked. You know what I mean? I don't need to see that. I really don't. I don't. Actually, I probably would not see that. Let's say those photos were released somehow. Do I really need to see them? I don't. Like, I don't need to see I don't need to see the graphic wounds and that. I don't need to see that. What I would like to see though is I want to see how they were positioned. I want to see the positioning of them. That's what I'm interested in. How they what was the positioning in the rooms? Like, okay, you telling me Xana was on the floor, right? Okay, and you tell me Ethan was on the bed, correct? Well, I want to see the positioning of that. That's what I'm curious about and interested in. I feel there was. Now, this is my opinion, of course. I feel there was posing. I feel that there was posing here. I do, at least with some of them. I feel that some of them were posed. I do, especially Kaylee. I feel Kaylee was posed. And, or how should I put this? She was put in a position that, she was put in a certain position. Let me just say that. And that was in Maddie's bed. And because Kaylee and Maddie, they were not sleeping in the same bed together. I have 100% feeling of accuracy on that, right? I do. They were not sleeping together in the same fucking bed. No way. So there is positioning there. I feel of at least Kaylee. I feel Kaylee was pushed. Now, if this is true, what we've been told, I don't know about this because we haven't seen it, right? And we may never will. I don't know, but I do feel again. The point is, I feel she was at least positioned in a certain way. Anyway. And the others, I don't know. But that's what I'd like, that's the kind of stuff I want to see. I don't need to see all the wounds. You know what I mean? I really don't. No. I can imagine if what we're told is true of how many stab wounds they had and all the injuries. And I do think there's more than one weapon that was used. I do believe that. Whether, I don't know. I don't know if there was a gun that was used. However, that may explain a firecracker sound. That may explain that. And a firecracker sound in a house is going to sound much different than a firecracker outside. It's going to me, if you're hearing a firecracker sound inside of a space, it's going to sound, it's going to be loud. It's going to be loud. To me, it's going to be loud. If you're saying a firecracker or something akin to that, well, firecrackers are loud. You know what I mean? Especially in an enclosed space. So yeah, there's that. So that would fit with a gun. I feel like the sound of a firecracker going off can mimic the sound of a gunshot for sure. So it doesn't explain though why it would be on the first floor. Because as far as we were told, nobody was unalived on the first floor. So that doesn't work. However, Bethany could have gotten mixed up. She could have heard what sounded like a firecracker, but was instead a gunshot. However, the gunshot came above her, right? It had to have come above her. And it could have echoed. And I think maybe, now I'm not giving her a benefit. I'm just saying, maybe what she's trying, now it wouldn't explain why she saw a flash outside her door, because that's impossible. You're not going to see a gun flash underneath the door frame. No. Unless, now here's the unless it's dark in that space from the front door going past her room, unless that space is dark, okay? But it wouldn't explain why it would happen right by her door or by her room. It wouldn't explain that. Unless somebody was unalived on her floor, which is interesting. So you can look, you can go a million different ways with this. You can think, well, if a gun was used, and this is what Bethany was kind of describing, and she saw a flash. Okay, well, that means then here's what I would think that would be then. Somebody was trying to get out of the house. Somebody was trying to exit that house. And they were shot before they exited the house. Because that's the only to me, that's the only way to explain why you'd see but then that wouldn't work either, because you would hear or the body would be kind of right there. You know what I'm saying? So that doesn't work, or maybe not. See, it gets convoluted. Gets really convoluted, because then you say, well, they could have, whoever did it, the perpetrators, they could have taken the body back up the steps, and put them and put whoever it was in one of the rooms. You could say that. You know what I mean? So all these weird little things, like, why would you hear a firecracker in your house? Yeah. And then say you see a flash of light or something like that. You know what I mean? Something like that. There's no, I don't know. Unless, you know what I'm saying? Unless Bethany, again, is just totally making things up, which is possible too. So anyway, that's not the point of this video. I'm getting on a tangent here. But yeah, these always odd little details in this crazy. It's crazy. Little details that don't make any sense. Anyway, let me show you what I wanted to show you this video. And I want you to watch out for when they start kind of going down the right path in their questioning. Watch when they switch right back. Watch when they jump right back onto the narrative, the mainstream narrative here, or what Moscow told them. It's interesting. Anyway, and as we're watching this, I want you to think to yourself, how long do you think it would have taken to do all this? I want you to ask yourself that. And then we have to talk about the latent shoe print again. Now, in some of my videos, I didn't make it clear. It wasn't clear that I was separating things out. So when I was saying about finding a latent bloody sneaker print, okay, I was sort of mixing that with a cleanup. I need to make that more clear. It doesn't mean that itself doesn't mean it was a cleanup. But it doesn't rule it out either, because you're just not, in my opinion, you're just not going to find one latent bloody shoe print. No, there's going to be a trail of them. However, we don't see that here. There's nothing in the reports that says there was a trail of latent bloody shoe prints, which there should have been, okay? Because you're not just going to have one latent bloody shoe print, okay? And again, unless you have one foot, and hopping around, it ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna happen. So no, if there's one latent bloody shoe print, there should have been more than one, right? Because there's a trail. There would be a trail. At least, well, how about this? At least more than one, okay? At least more than one. Absolutely. So again, that's why I say there's a cleanup, because what we should read is there was a trail of footprints. They were faint. That's why we did this test, right? To bring them out. But that's not what we read. We only read about one stupid fucking footprint. That's all. No, what it should have said was, if this was real, and I do believe this piece is... Now listen. There should have been a trail of footprints that were latent. Latent, okay? Doesn't mean there was a cleanup. However, the fact that we don't see that here, to me, suggests, yes, there was a cleanup attempt. And that one, if they only found one latent shoe print, well, that means to me that the others were cleaned up. But then you'd say, well, wouldn't there be evidence to show that they were cleaned up? Well, you would think that, but how comes we're not seeing that? So you can really go crazy on this one. But look, if you're finding one latent bloody sneaker shoe print, there has to be more. You're just not going to have one. Because when you're stepping when you get blood on your shoe, well, one step isn't going to wipe it off completely. No, it's so dumb. It's so dumb. I mean, let's say you get it only on one sneaker, okay? You happen to be lucky, right? You get it only on one of your sneakers. There's still going to be more than one footprint. But yet, I don't know if it's because Brett Payne doesn't know how to write a fucking probable cause affidavit, because that's where it's coming from, his probable cause. Maybe that's it. I mean, you've seen what he looks like. You've seen him on there to sentencing, the press conference. He doesn't seem that bright to me. So maybe he just didn't know how to write a report and forgot to add those things. I don't know. But no, we should have read, yes, there were multiple footprints that came down from the steps or whatever, at least more than one, that came down from the steps that veered toward Dylan's bedroom, right? The one that they found outside of her door, which is hers, by the way, which is, I fully believe that. And there's at least a couple, one or two or whatever, that lead from her fucking door out through the sliding glass door from the kitchen. That's what we should see. Yet, there's nothing there. So, I don't know. Is this Brett Payne who doesn't know how to write things and just forgets these details to put in there? I don't know. But I doubt it. If that's the case, that's really bad, in my opinion. That's really, really bad. To me, that's even, well, again, this is Moscow, Idaho, so who knows? But, No, I do believe that shoe print. I firmly believe that's Dylan's shoe print. Absolutely, hands down. That was her sneaker shoe print. There's a whole lot with that I can get into. That's why, again, there was a cleanup in my opinion. Not because it was latent shoe print, but because the fact that there was only one reported. That's why I'm saying there was a cleanup. Absolutely. There would have been more footprints found. Brian Koberger has more than one leg, right? And but we don't. Again, it's not in any report. It's not in any other reports. I haven't, unless my memory is failing me. Correct me, guys. I have not read any report that mentions any type of trail of latent bloody footprints leading anywhere in the house. Correct me if I'm wrong. I do not remember reading anything about that, not in Moscow's documents or in Idaho State Police documents. I don't remember reading anything like that at all. And I should have read that. I think I would have remembered that. I think I would have. Yeah. Yes, indeed. In fact, there's a lot of things I don't remember reading in there that somehow make its way into this case that are missing. We found blood on the fucking hand railing and I don't remember reading any of that. But it has to be in there somewhere because they supposedly found this shit. Anyway, guys, could be my memory failing me. That could be too. Or I'm just, sick and I don't remember right now, but whatever. Anyway, let me get on to what I'm showing you, where this, again, is going to be an hour-long video. Okay, here we go. And there's one last thing I want to say at the end of this video, and it refers to, how Moscow wants to protect people's, they want to protect their privacy and, all this stuff. I'm gonna and I already told you guys this before in another video way back, a while ago. But keep that point in mind about how Moscow wants to protect people's privacy and all this stuff, their mental health and their safety and all this, right? Keep that in mind, because at the very end of this video, you already know this. But in case you forgot, I'm going to remind you. Yeah, and you'll see what I mean. Okay, And no, I'm not going to show you it because I'd be just as bad as them. But here's the video we're going to look at. Fair warning, fair warning. This does get into the wounds that the victim suffered. So just fair warning on that point. It does talk about that. Yeah. So just fair warning. I mean, it's not anything that we haven't already known, really. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it. You know, the details. Some of the details are a little graphic. So anyway, here we go. All right, guys, let's go. So this is from Court TV. Autopsy findings in honor of Judge Marshall's, playing constitutional attorney. Constitutional judge. Because I guess free speech and all that doesn't matter. No, whatever. So let's check this out.
This hour, we're bringing you a look at newly released documents in the Idaho student murders case. Now, these documents there's a lot of pages, but they're shedding light into what really happened to Kaylee Gonsalves, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. Hundreds of documents were released by the Moscow police within hours of Kohberger being sentenced to life in prison. Now, in the next part of this, we want to focus on the autopsies of two of the victims. Let's start first with Kaylee Gonsalves, who had 20-plus stab wounds. And the document states that she had sharp force injuries, asphyxial injuries, blunt force injuries, and that her fatal injuries included lacerations in her left lung and liver, subdural bleeds, a stab behind her clavicle that cut her subclavian vein and artery. Phil, very hard to hear. But the reality is that is not one stab wound to the heart. That is not a quick get in, get out.
That's not a quick get in, get out. Okay, remember, guys, what we're doing here. We're watching for them. They're going in the right direction at times here, but they stop themselves. They will not allow themselves to go further in their questioning. Now this is the first point. What she says here, that is not a quick get in, get out. Okay, that's true. It's not.
That is purposeful, and she's moving, and Brian Kohberger's going
and she's moving. She's not asleep.
After her, and repeated stab.
Now, again, using Kohberger here, okay, but the perpetrator, we're going to say perpetrator. They're going to say Kohberger, I'm going to say perpetrator, but whatever. Going after her.
The number of injuries surprises me a little bit.
The number of injuries, right?
Here, all four were killed by one person in their home.
There you go. See, we're going in the right direction already. It's surprising. One person, first of all, in their home at 4 a.m., okay?
4 a.m. It happened. So many stab wounds, so many injuries.
Right?
It is
shocking,
right. Actually.
It is. Especially the one person part.
And the asphyxial injuries do make it appear that he was holding her down by her neck while he proceeded to just brutally stab her repeatedly.
How long would that take?
Just the number of the wounds and how deep and how brutal.
Well, according to Moscow idiots and ISP, 4 seconds.
They are.
Right, Ken Maines? This would take about what? 30 seconds to do this, right?
It's not something you see. I mean, I have seen stabbing cases, but the reports in this case indicate a level of intentionality and force and a methodical approach that you really don't see very much.
No, Ted, it's horrific hearing these details.
Now she's trying to be Nancy Grace there.
Yeah, it absolutely is. And to your point...
When I say horrific like that, I'm trying to be Nancy Grace.
It's so many stab wounds.
So many.
Rage that he had to...
Just like an ex-boyfriend might have.
Had or something, whatever.
Or somebody like Little G.
Whatever was fueling him. He doesn't know these people.
He doesn't know these people.
It's not the ex-boyfriend.
It's not the ex-boyfriend. Are you sure?
Friend, it's not the husband or the wife killing the husband. Like a lot of the cases.
Like most of the cases.
These are 4 strangers.
4 strangers.
And he mutilates them. It is horrific. And look at Madison Mogan, her autopsy report. Fatal injuries, lacerations to the left lung and liver. Maddie only had sharp force injuries. The weapon was very sharp. Suspect used a lot of force. Joanne, you said earlier it's hard. You're not going to be able to put yourself in the position of the person that, if you want to call him a person, that did this. But just from a logistical standpoint, being able to pull this off,
right?
You have to be physically and mentally in a state of where adrenaline's running through your body, and there's got to be a factor of rage or something.
Well. Yes and no. Yes and no. Yeah, I mean, most likely. But we can also go the other direction and say, this is Michael Myers, too, right? Michael Myers, right? Hey, in honor of Halloween coming up, we can say, this is a Michael Myers kind of character, where there's no empathy, there's no hurry, there's no adrenaline, there's nothing, right? The boogeyman, right? The shape, right? There's nothing. It's just a killing machine, right? That has no adrenaline pumping, just gonna stab and move on to the next person. Could also go in that direction too. Good. But I tend to agree. This is more rage. There would be adrenaline. I agree with that. Especially for a first-time unaliver, supposedly.
It's just, he mutilated 4 individuals in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, isn't that weird? See, they don't allow themselves to go any further, though.
Horrible.
Yeah, it is terrible. Reading this is...
Like, for instance... that sounds kind of impossible, don't you think? They won't allow themselves to go that far.
Is just as it shines this light and makes it very, very clear that there had to be something more to it.
There had to be something more to it.
I think that's just what people want to believe, because it's like, how not only are you carrying this out and against 4 people, but stabbing tends to be so personal, like you were saying. You see this in these,
like you see this in dating relationships, right? Like an ex-boyfriend, like somebody jealous, somebody who doesn't want to let you go, somebody who doesn't want you to go to Texas, something like that. Could be that. Somebody who walks upon the crime scene and acts like they just woke up and they're going for a morning walk. Somebody like that. Possibly, right, guys? Yeah. Somebody who comes upon a crime scene and asks the police in a very, kind of monotone, no sense of anxiety whatsoever, no sense of anything like that. That kind of demeanor, right? Well, we saw that demeanor, didn't we? Yeah, we did.
Dating relationships, or where there's something that happened, and then you have the asphyxiation as well, like a strangulation, some kind of like more personal
type of crime that is usually, which is, yeah, like if I'm choking you, and I'm stabbing you at the same time. I think every other case not every other, I'm exaggerating. But yeah, I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's probably going to be an ex-lover or somebody who was in a relationship with you. I think 9 times out of 10, that's what we see. I guess this just happens to be the 1 out of 10 fucking case in the history of cases, right? It has to be.
Personal type of crime that we
again. What are the odds of that?
typically see. And so those combination, when you see that for Kaylee, but you don't necessarily see the same report for Madison, it almost makes you wonder, was there something that triggered this between him and Kaylee that trickled over into the rest of the home, but was his intention really targeted towards her? Again, we don't know, but those little nuggets or clues that are left behind make you wonder that yes, they were strangers. They didn't personally know him, but was there some off the cuff remark or something that happened in a parking lot or some chance encounter at some point that really made them the target of his fixation?
And it's interesting. I think the word targeting can be misused or misunderstood because I know the police in Moscow said no. There would
look. Okay, let me think about that. Let's say there was some off-the-cuff remarks. So, let's say he did run into Kaylee somewhere, who knows, at the Albertsons or where the fuck ever, right? And she said something flippant to him or something. Hey, or hey, why did you take my parking spot? Whatever, who cares? And then all of a sudden, that starts his obsession with, and then staking out the house. So what? So he waits. So let's follow that line of thinking for a minute. So there's some off the cuff remark or something that pisses him off to the point where now at that moment he decides, okay, that's it. This I'm gonna take this. That's it. Okay, here goes my fantasy. Whatever. So, but then we have to do this though. Then we have to find out where she lives. So I guess we follow her to find out where her house is, right? However, Kaylee was not living in the house though. So again, it's going to lead you down a dark path here, a blind alley here. Because Kaylee, again, was not supposed to be there that weekend. We cannot just forget these details. Kaylee was not supposed to be there that weekend. So, only a select few people knew that Kaylee was going to be there that weekend. Oh, a select few. Now, you have to make that jump and say, well, Brian somehow knew that. Brian somehow knew that Kaylee was going to be there that weekend. Right? Right. Again, that line of thinking is going to lead you right against a wall. Because unless he's watching that house that entire weekend, he has to be watching that house. In order for that to work, then this has to occur. He has to be watching that house from Friday morning all the way through up until 4 a.m. Sunday morning. He has to be keeping tabs on that house. Otherwise, he is not going to know that Kaylee is going to be there. Does that make sense? No. To me, that does not make any sense. You are not going to be staked out at Kaylee's house, the King Road house, from Friday morning all the way through Sunday 4 a.m. No fucking way are you doing that. So, again, what is more logical, reasonable here to think? What is more logical and reasonable to think here with this question is that the people who knew that Kaylee was going to be there, well, guess who they were? They were her supposed friends and some of the frat members, right? And the ex-boyfriend knew as well. Okay? These are the people that knew 100% for sure that Kaylee was going to be in that house. And that narrows it way down. That narrows the suspect pool way down. But guess what? This was not a real investigation. Okay? In my opinion. So, but But if this was a real investigation, your suspect list jumped. Now, it got cut down now. Now what you're going to do is you're going to focus on the people who knew that Kaylee was going to be in that house. That's what you're going to do. And you're going to compile a list of those people. And those are the people you're going to focus on. Because, and this is just my guess and opinion, but the percentage of getting let me show you real quick. I know, guys, I'm sorry. I don't want to make this an hour-long video, but I feel we have to follow the tangent here, okay? Now check this out. Okay. So this is what you do. If you're actually investigating this case, you are going to compile a list. Right? Absolutely. You're going to compile a list. Of course. But this list, what you're focusing on here is you're focusing on the people that knew 100% that Kaylee was going to be there. That's the list you're making. And your list is not going, you think it might be long. You're going to think at first that this list may be extremely long. But in reality, I don't believe so. In reality, your list is not going to be that long. It's going to encompass, well, it's Dylan for sure, because Dylan is the one that invited Kaylee back to the house. She is definitely, again, that's why she's my prime. That's why she's my prime. That's another reason why she's my prime. Because Dylan, again, we already know this, guys, but we have to do this. Dylan is the one that invited Kaylee back to the house. So Dylan, for 100% sure, knew that Kaylee was going to be there. There's no doubt about that. She also knew that Kaylee was going to stay over through the weekend. She also knew that 100% for sure. So she's at the top of your list. She is suspect numero uno. Absolutely. And if this was a real investigation, guys, she is your number one suspect. Absolutely. No question. Hey, people who think otherwise, fine. But again, if this was a real investigation, she is the one that got Kaylee back to that house, and guess what happens to Kaylee? Well, she gets unalived. Again, what are the odds of that happening here? Right? Remember, it's always odds, too. Odds. Anyway, so Dylan gets Kaylee back to the house. Dylan is at the top of your list. Absolutely. Who else knows, right? Who else knows? Well, of course, Maddie. Of course, Maddie, because that's the reason why Kaylee wanted to go back there. It wasn't because of Dylan. It was because of Maddie. They are best friends. So, of course, Maddie's going to know, but she's a victim. So, Maddie's out. Xana knew, because she knew, but she's a victim, so that rules her out. Bethany knew. Bethany is not a victim. So Bethany is going to stay on your list for sure. So you may consider her your second prime suspect. Or let's say your second, your number two. You put her at number two. You have to. Because again, she's the only other person right now that we're doing, compiling this list, that knows for 100% certainty that Kaylee is going to be there. So she is suspect number two. Okay? Yes. That's accurate and true. Right? But Bethany didn't invite Kaylee back. So she's not going to be at the same level as Dylan is. Dylan is always going to be your prime. Always. Always. Now, who else knew? Who else knew that Kaylee was going to be there that weekend? Who else knew? Well, Ethan probably, but again, you rule him out because he's one of the victims. So he's out, right? So who else knows? I would put Jack Decor in this box. Yes, Jack Decor knows. Why? Because Jack Decor had interactions with her during the course of the weekend, and he knew that she was staying at the house. So Jack Decor is going to be on your fucking list. He better be. So you put him as 3, Jack Decor. And he gets elevated because he's the ex-boyfriend. So you're going to put him above Bethany. Absolutely. Jack Decor is elevated above Bethany here. Of course. Because he's the ex-boyfriend. And in some of those documents, Jack Decor had some issues. She had some struggles, Mr. Jack Decor. I feel Mr. Jack Decor had some mental health problems going on. Due to the fact that he was no longer with Kaylee, he downplayed it. He downplayed it to his friends, and he downplayed it to the other roommates. That's what Jack Decor did. However, Jack Decor was not okay with this. Jack Decor was not okay. No, he was not. He was not okay. He did not want, this is my opinion, Jack Decor did not want Kaylee going to Texas. He did not want her leaving and going to Texas. 100% I believe that. Remember how Kaylee referred to Jack Decor. Kaylee referred to Jack Decor as her little child. Yes, she did. That's in the documents. That's a direct quote from one of her friends that said she would refer to Jack Decor as her little child. Her little child. That's an interesting phrase to use for your ex-boyfriend, isn't it? He's my little child. Well, what does that imply? He's a baby. He's a little baby, essentially. That's essentially what I read that as. He's my little baby. He's a baby. Yeah, which means he's fragile. Now, Kaylee is strong. Kaylee is not like Jack Decor. Kaylee is strong. Yes, she is. Kaylee is a strong female, I feel. Yes, she is. Kaylee is strong. Kaylee is strong, and she doesn't have a lot of fear, I feel. I don't feel Kaylee is really scared of much. I really feel that, and I believe that. Hell, she's fucking moving to Texas, man. She is getting out and going to Texas. She is moving on from the fucking Idaho sticks and the Children of the Corn. Thank you, Lisa, for that. Children of the Corn, okay? A Dark Night of the Scarecrow, whatever. But she's getting out and she's going to Texas. Yes, she is. Yes, she is. Bye-bye. See you later. I love you all, but later, okay? I'm living my life now and getting the fuck away from you people. Except Maddie. Except Maddie, because I feel Kaylee and Maddie absolutely are best friends. I think I totally agree with this dynamic. I mean, I totally agree with this. Yes, they've been best friends for a really long time since they were little kids. They know each other. You know what I mean? Yes, they probably fight here and there, whatever. But no, they have a real friendship here. Absolutely, 100% I believe that. And, again, that's the reason why Kaylee came back to the house. Not because Dylan asked her to. Kaylee, in my opinion, again, wanted to get as far away from Dylan as she possibly could. I feel Kaylee was freaked out by Dylan. I feel Kaylee didn't like Dylan. I feel that Kaylee was weirded out by Dylan. Yes, and Bethany to some degree, probably too. Maybe not as much as Dylan, but I do feel there's that dynamic as well. Anyway, getting back to the list, okay? Getting back to the list. So Jack Decor is definitely going to be there. You're going to elevate him to number 2. He's going to be your second prime or your second level. So we got to move Bethany down. Okay, so Bethany moves down. Jack Decor is number 2. Absolutely. He's the ex, and he wasn't okay. He had some mental health struggles. I feel he had some mental health struggles with the breakup. Yes, I do. Now, he downplayed it, but I feel that's there. Yep. And he didn't want her going to Texas. Because once she goes to Texas, it's you are never going to see her again. Once Kaylee goes to Texas, Jack Decor knows we're not going to keep in contact really anymore. And he did not want that. No, he did not. And if it's true that Kaylee had a male roommate lined up down there, holy hell. Holy hell. And if Jack Decor knew that, which I probably feel he did, because they all gossip and they all talk to each other, I am 100% certain, 95% certain, let me say, or highly certain, that Jack DeCour knew Kaylee had a male roommate waiting down there. Yes, indeed. And do you think Jack DeCour would be okay with Kaylee, first of all, moving to Texas? And not only moving to Texas, but she's got a male fucking roommate waiting down there for her. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Nope. Not in my opinion. Not in my opinion. Absolutely not. Not when he's my little child. See? No. So, who else knows, right? But, okay, we can go on. But this is my point. This is what you're going to do, though. And your list is not going to be very long here. Because, again, there's only a few people who knew that Kaylee was going to be there. That's what you do here. That's what you do. And one of these people, or a couple of them, those are going to be your suspects. Hands down. Hands down. But again, Moscow did not do this. They did not do this. They immediately ruled out Dylan. They immediately ruled out Bethany. They immediately ruled out Jack. Well, it took a little. They ruled him out rather quickly. Okay, way quick. Who else knew that the girls were going to be there? That Jack Showalter knew. He knew that Kaylee was going to be there that entire weekend. Yeah, because he's the one that was at the corner club with them. And he's the one that tagged along with them from the corner club to the grub truck. And what happened was Jack Showalter was under the impression that they were going to go to John's Alley after the corner club. So he was hoping, here's also what was going on. Jack Showalter was hoping to continue the night with the two girls by going to John's Alley, because that's what they were talking about doing. However, what happened? The girls in there, they decided at some point, we're not going to John's Alley with this guy. That's what they decided. And so what do? They called for an Uber. Eric shows up, right? And they ditch him. They ditch Jack Showalter. Fuck off. Bye-bye. No, we're not going to John's Alley with you. Are you kidding me? Because because Maddie and Kaylee don't hang out with Jack Showalter. That's unusual. In fact, in interviews, we hear people say, well, I found that really unusual that they were hanging out with him. Because they don't hang out with him. For that night, though, he was with them. For that night, for some reason, Jack Showalter was hanging around them, was with them. He wanted to continue the night with them, and they blew him the fuck off. Bye-bye. See ya. So he's definitely going to be on your list. But guess what? They ruled him out. Like that. See ya. Nope, he had nothing to do with it. Nope. Even though, by the way, we found blood in his apartment. Oh, you remember that? Blood in his apartment, which we have no idea what they did with, by the way. We have no idea what happened to the blood that they found in his apartment. We have no idea what the fuck they did with it. None. Yeah, this is not a real investigation. This is what you do. Anyway, let's get back to the video. Sorry, guys. I hope that was enlightening, because this is what you would do. And on this list, you're going to have your perpetrators. Hands down. And Dylan is always going to be at the top of that fucking list. Always. Because she is the one, again, who got Kaylee back to that house. Yep. Yes and yes.
Targeted. But when we're looking through this transcript and see things like one of the roommates reporting she may have seen someone outside of the home, one of the doors hanging by its hinges, the screen doors at the home, you do have to wonder, to your point, if perhaps he didn't know them, but he had his sights fixed on them. Call that what you
Blind alley.
I want to turn the
Blind alley
documents, because we also see some of the results from Xana Kernodle's autopsy.
Okay, let's hear this.
I can't get over this.
I can't either.
That she had 50 plus stab wounds. Most of hers were defensive wounds. Her fatal injuries included lacerations in her right lung and heart with only sharp force injuries. To make it even harder, to make it even sadder, Phil, defensive wounds, 50. She fought for her life, literally, and the autopsy proves that.
Sorry, guys. All right, and again, how long would that take? Oh, now let me back up. Remember, Idaho State police idiots, Moscow police idiots, they want you to believe that this would only take about 30 seconds. Right? A minute maybe. Right, Ken Maines? 50 plus fucking stab wounds. Most of them are defensive. A girl who's fighting for her life. I guess that would take about 30 seconds to do. Yeah, sure.
And I think if
Sure.
you look at the
30 seconds.
difference.
Sure, why not? For a first-time offender? Yeah, 30 seconds sounds about right. Sure.
You see in the autopsy reports for these individuals, I believe it was was it Morgan's that it was only fatal. It was only sharp force. Kaylee, you have the
You have the choking, right?
And then with Zaina, you do have the defensive wound.
Right.
So it suggests
two perpetrators.
It certainly would
two different methods of killing people.
Be consistent.
Yeah, doesn't it? More than one weapon, possibly. Yes, absolutely, in my opinion.
With
that makes gouging wounds. Yeah.
Unfolding of events where
like a K-bar does. No.
Where Morgan is kept caught completely off guard. Kaylee is sort of becomes aware of what's happening.
I agree with that.
Maybe right before it does, and he has to hold her down. And by the time he comes to Zaina, she is aware of what's happening in the house and trying to do something or defend herself. So just a horrific.
It depends what order you want to go in. Depends. Now, I'm not arguing that point right here, but I can argue that Xana and Ethan were first. I'm not arguing that point right now, or else it would drone on.
Perfect picture of events, and I think that is borne out in the police reports and the observations of the first responders when they arrive.
Well, not really with the first responders.
Yeah, and we do know that Xana had received a DoorDash delivery in the minutes before, within 15, 20 minutes before the murders. And according
we're not arguing that right now either. Right, Molly Meth?
Her phone activity, she was on watching TikTok videos, so she was awake. So she must have heard.
We're not arguing that point either right now.
Something up from the third floor and then engaged with the suspect, but 50 plus wounds is horrific. Now,
yeah, it is. And think about this, guys. You are fighting for your life, correct? You are receiving over 50 plus stab wounds. Most of them are defensive, right? And nobody makes a sound, right? Nobody's screaming. Nobody's saying, help me, help me, help me. I'm being stabbed to death. Nobody's screaming. Xana's not screaming. Dylan, what's Dylan doing? What's Dylan doing? Dylan is 5 feet from her room. And you're going to sit here and tell me that Dylan didn't hear Xana screaming her fucking head off. Are you kidding me? Anybody who believes that, I seriously encourage you to go see a psychiatrist. I really do. There is no way. Listen, I'm putting myself in that position, right? If I know, listen to this. If I know how many people are in my house, let's say I have 5 people that live with me, all right? And this is happening to me, I'm screaming my ass off. Because I know there's 4 other people in the house or 5 other people in the house that may help me. They may call the police. That's what I'm doing. I'm not going to sit there and take it and not make a sound. You know what I'm saying, guys? Anybody who believes otherwise, you need to go see a psychiatrist. And that includes all of mainstream media they don't question anything in this case. Nancy Grace, you need to see a psychiatrist. Ashley Banfield, you need to go see a psychiatrist. And everybody else that you can think of. Ken Maines, you need to go see a psychiatrist. I mean, seriously. You know what that means? Dylan, you know what that means? Dylan ignored it. Dylan heard it. You know, the whole fucking house probably heard it. I can't imagine people on the outside didn't hear it. Seriously, I put myself in that position. And I'm a guy, right? I'm a freaking guy. And I'm fighting for my life. And I'm receiving these types of wounds, this amount of stab wound. I'm screaming my ass off. Especially if I know there are 4 other people in the house that could possibly help me or call police at least. But here we are, guys. Dylan didn't do that. Bethany didn't do that. Even though Dylan heard her screaming her ass off. Yeah, she's my fucking prime. She will always be my prime. Because people who are not guilty, they would not act the way that Dylan and Bethany acted. No way. No way. And if you believe otherwise, you need to go to a psychiatrist and get your head examined. You really do. You really do. Just put yourself in that position. Right? You're one of 5 other people in the house, and you're hearing another person in your house screaming bloody murder. And instead of calling 911, you are going to run down to another person's bedroom and do absolutely fucking nothing? No, think about it. Think about it. If you believe that, you need to see a psychiatrist immediately. You do. You really do. Because your denial is impenetrable. Impenetrable. I'm sorry, but that's what it is, guys. If I hear somebody screaming bloody murder, I am not going to run to a different room and then sit in that very room for 8 hours and do fucking nothing. Not to mention going on TikTok and Instagram and Indeed.com. No, I'm not even talking about that. Let's throw that in there too while we're at it. You know? And then calling my fucking parents about a toothache. Give me a fucking break, guys. Now, again, it's so sad, isn't it, my garden? It's very sad. And you know what? And if you don't believe me, you guys do. My garden absolutely does. But if you want to kind of reinforce that point for yourself, I want you to go on Pro Guilters channels and that mention the roommates. And I want you to read the comments about the roommates. It is very frightening and very sad that these people absolutely believe what Dylan said happened. It is very scary because they have the inability to put themselves in Xana's shoes or in a person's shoes that would happen to. They lack that ability. But see, the roommates in a normal situation, you're calling the police. You're going to lock yourself in your fucking room. You hear somebody screaming their ass off being attacked. You're going to lock yourself in your room. You're going to get on your goddamn cell phone and you're going to call 911 immediately. And as you're calling 911, you're going to try to get out of your fucking window. Now, if Dylan has a window in her room, it's only 2 feet from the ground floor. I'd be crawling my ass out of that fucking window and jumping down 2 feet, getting out of the house, running away from the house. As I'm doing that, I'm calling 911. And I'm on the phone with 911 and I'm saying, I don't know what's going on, but my roommate is screaming like she's being attacked. Yes, indeed, that's what you're gonna fucking do here. Unless you are mentally incapacitated to the point where you have no brain cells operating, that's what you're gonna do. Seriously. Bethany too. I mean, Bethany as well. Bethany doesn't get out of this either. You have Bethany acting the same way too, guys. It doesn't happen. Anyway, sorry, a little tangent there. I'm just saying, people, you really need to go to a psychiatrist. If you absolutely believe what Dylan and Bethany said, you need to go to the psychiatrist now. You need to make an appointment and go and get some medications to break through that denial. You do. I'm sorry, but that's the truth. And that includes Ken Maines, Nancy Grace, and all the mainstream parrots and the mainstream toe the line. You all need to go see a psychiatrist immediately. Yes, yes, and yes. A few more minutes of this, guys, and we're going to wrap it up.
Ethan, this is the autopsy findings.
Okay.
For
Ethan, yeah.
Fatal injury was from a stab wound under his left clavicle. The wound severed his jugular vein, subclavian artery. He only had sharp injuries as well. Okay. In this, they failed to mention the wounds to his leg that were deep and cut through down into deep the muscle. Now, I don't know if the wound hit the bone or not, but it cut deep enough. It cut very deep into the muscle. Okay? That's also what happened to him. Plus other things we're not aware of, I'm guessing. But yeah. Was he asleep? Was he...
I don't know, was he?
You have to think that if...
Why don't we ask Moscow Police Department? They should know. Or why don't we ask the coroner? They should know.
Xana fought back, that maybe he was just waking up, or if he was killed first. We don't know.
Yeah, you don't. Isn't that ironic that nobody knows?
No, but
not even Moscow Police, apparently.
What we do know is that these four beautiful people were absolutely just butchered in a way that is savage. And again, it comes back to how would you fuel that? And we don't know.
Great question.
But you're right, Joanna. There seems to have to be something, unless he's Mr. Warrior going to.
You see, they almost allow themselves to get to that point in their questioning of this. They're almost getting there, but they refuse. They, for whatever reason, maybe it's their denial, maybe it's because they just want to follow the mainstream narrative. They will not allow themselves to say the obvious.
To fight in this,
it's really sad.
It's hard to get your head around, and if you think about the family members...
It's not hard to get your head around because you're following the wrong theory. That's why it's hard to get your head around. It's not hard to get your head around when you say there is more than one person who committed this crime. Then it's not so hard to get your head around because it fits. That fits, guys. We know it. My garden knows it. People with logical thinking brains know it. Okay? It's not hard once you actually start using a theory that makes sense here. Then your mind is going to become much more clear here. That's what happens.
Who, now that these documents have been released, have an opportunity, if they want, they can really go into some horrible rabbit holes.
Like you?
In terms of details of how they lost their loved ones.
Oh, that rabbit hole.
Ted, can I just jump in here and say, I just think there was an adrenaline of committing the perfect crime. I think in his mind, he was going to commit that perfect crime. He knew exactly what he was going there to do. And I think his adrenaline was so full tilt to do this successfully that just fueled him on.
Oh, sure. Okay, here's the question then. Why did he let Dylan Mortensen live? Can you answer that question? Nope. Yeah, he had so much adrenaline, so much rage, so much anger, all this stuff. He sees Dylan and says, fuck it. I'm going to go. I'll see you later, Dylan. And she says, by the way, clean up my footprints before you go and pick me up a cappuccino on your way out. You can't explain Dylan. Because Dylan fucks up. One of the biggest mistakes Dylan makes in this case is she admits that one of the perpetrators saw her and she saw him. That is one of the biggest errors, that is one of the biggest mistakes that Dylan Mortensen makes in this case. Because somebody like Brian, the way they're trying to paint this, with all that adrenaline and rage and blah, 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 when he sees Dylan, he is going to do what he is going to do to her. Just like he did to the other 4.
I know Ted had asked you. I just had to say that, but Joanna, weigh in, please.
Go ahead, Joanna, weigh in.
Oh, yeah, for sure. You know, I think the family, it would be hard.
Don't you love the echo chamber?
For these people who've been so invested and who have these unanswered questions, and, you know, to avoid looking at these documents and trying to figure out something to give them, bring them some level of peace and closure about what happened. And, you know, him not saying anything, obviously. That's
because Bill Thompson didn't give a shit about it.
He has his rights to keep it to himself, but him not saying anything is just another level of torture towards the family and the survivors. And then as far as...
Here's what Bill Thompson could have done, okay? Here's what Bill Thompson could have done. Instead of the bullshit excuse that he gave everybody, here's what Bill Thompson should have and could have done, okay? If Brian Kohlberger truly wanted to plead guilty and avoid the death penalty, okay, fine. But you have to make him. Here's what you need to do here, okay? Now, Brian may refuse to do this and say, okay, the plea's off. At which case, then, okay, fuck you. We go to trial, and I'm going to do my best to get you convicted, and you're going to get the death penalty, okay, you fucking prick? That's the approach you're going to take with him, okay? Because at that point, then you're not going to fuck around anymore. You're going to be pissed off, and you're going to say, okay, we're going to trial, and I'm going to do everything in my power to get you convicted, you son of a bitch. Okay, that's how you're going to approach him then. If he wants to play games with you. But Bill Thompson didn't even try. See, because Bill Thompson never wanted this to go to trial. Because Bill Thompson knew that he stood a great chance of losing this case. And again, he didn't want to risk that. And he didn't want to risk losing millions of more dollars for the University of Idaho. But here's what he should have done. In order to plead guilty to this and avoid the death penalty, I need you to write out a full confession on how you committed this crime, and I need you to give me as many details as you remember. Once you provide that to me, I will accept your plea, and the death penalty will be removed, and that's it. We wash our hands of this case, and we go on our merry way. Okay, you go to prison forever, and I suck, everybody sucks my cock, and that's it, right? Then we go on our merry way. But Bill Thompson didn't even bother to do that, see? And Brian Kohlberger's not going to offer it up. So, of course, Brian's not going to say anything. Well, first of all, nobody asked him to do it. So if Brian Kohlberger was so afraid of the death penalty, okay, well, then you make him write down what he did. You're not going to make him get up in front of everybody and say it. You're not going to do that because Brian's not going to do that. If you're a profiler, Brian Kohlberger is not going to stand up in the front of a room of everybody and detail what he did. Brian is not that kind of person. But Brian will write it down, though, I believe. Again, assuming he's the only person, he's the one and only, okay? Brian is more likely to write it down instead of, verbally saying it. But Bill Thompson never even did this. He never even tried to do this. He didn't. You know this. So again, it's all lies. Lies, Bill. It's all lies, Bill. You could have easily made that as part of his plea. He needs to give me a written confession and as much detail as possible about how he carried out the unalivings. That's all you had to say, Bill. But you didn't even bother to do that. You slimy bastard. Yes, you're pathetic.
As, him carrying out that purpose.
No wonder Steve Gonzalez was so angry. He has every right to be angry about that. Because Steve knew that this son of a bitch didn't even bother to do it.
Crime.
Yeah, disgusting.
He left.
We're not going to argue that right now.
behind with DNA.
We're not going to argue that right now.
On it, and he prides himself on being so smart and this narcissistic.
You don't know that, and we're not going to argue that right now.
Demeanor.
You're not a psychiatrist either. You actually need to see one, but you're not a psychiatrist.
I've caught on to that we've mentioned may.
You're parroting the mainstream media to narrative. Right.
Lead to him somewhere down the line doing a book or doing
Joanna.
some television expose on why he did it and how he did it. I do believe he'd love to take the stage with.
I don't think so.
With that.
Oh yeah. Okay, we'll see.
But
I highly doubt that.
The end of it all.
He would have done it by now, I think. Nah, I don't know yet. But I'm just saying, I highly doubt that's what we're gonna see here.
Will this give the family any peace? I think that's what we're looking for. Whether it's from him sharing something or these documents, they may want to avoid the gritty details, but I don't think they'll be able to resist. They're going to be looking for some closure.
Of course. Of course. And that's why some of the families are angry, because Bill Thompson didn't even try.
We want to know everything. We want to know everything, what happened.
Absolutely we do.
You're a little girl or a boy at this point, because let's face it, they were young adults, yes. But, to their parents.
Yes.
Their little ones.
Absolutely, of course.
Watch them grow up.
Cool. Okay. All right, guys, we're going to leave it right there. I'm sorry. I did not intend for this to be another hour-long video. I hope you like that one. The next one... Sorry, guys. Hang on. The next one that's going to go up is going to... I promise it's going to be more condensed and not as scattered. But again, some of these tangents we do have to follow, okay? Because one thing leads into another thing. Anyway, I hope you like that. Hope you're having a good day today. I hope you're not sick, okay? And if you are sick, I hope you're taking care of yourself, all right? I love you all, and I'll see. I'll be on here again soon, okay? I hope you like that one, guys. Okay, all right. Bye-bye, babies. Bye-bye.